Okay, so today is going to be a critique of Thakkar. He's quite good at 2x2, and he wants to get better at pyramids. I think he averages about 7 seconds or so. Yeah. So for this first scramble, Ram does U tip, and then ULR to solve green centers because he's doing the green layer, and then he does L prime B to rotate, get the green layer on bottom. The centers were good, but he really just should have done that to put green on bottom. There's no reason to do 2 rotations. It actually does save quite a bit of time if you plan that out. And but he was here because he did 2 rotations, and then he does a U prime, then rotates and does U prime L prime UL. This is quite bad. If he wanted to insert the blue edge, all he had to do was R prime U prime R. No rotation, 3 moves instead of 5 moves. And he also could have solved the red edge by doing L prime UL. No rotation, 3 moves as well. So he ends up doing U prime L prime UL. Then he rotates, does a U prime, rotates, inserts red with a sledge or hedge. If you wanted to insert the red edge, what he should have done is rotate once, done R prime U prime R to insert in the back. Would have led to if he inserted it with a hedge, it would have led to a skip as well. I don't expect him to be seeing that though. So he does that. So he does rotate U prime, rotate. He also could have inserted yellow easily without rotating at all, just R prime U prime R. Then last edge, he's here, and he does U prime L prime UL to insert. Nothing wrong with that. Solves the tip, rotates, does last layer. Done. Last layer was pretty good. Move on to solve tip. Okay, so for the second scramble, he does red layer, and he starts off the tip solid, then does R L prime, and he preserves this blue edge solved. Then he rotates, and here he rotates again, then solves this one. He definitely should have solved this green edge, because if he inserted the green edge, then inserted the yellow edge, he would have had a solved cube. Not saying he should have seen that, because he's not, a world-class solver. But since it was 2 moves, he probably should have at least been planning on one of the edges. Maybe he was. But yeah, he inserts this edge instead. You might want to get in the habit of, if you see a solved edge, to preserve it. So if I had looked at this, I would insert green instead of yellow, because inserting the green edge preserves this solved edge. So he inserts this, rotates, inserts this. He could have not rotated and just done it inserting in the left, or inserting it like such in the left, but he rotates. That's a mistake. AUFs and then does a really solid soon execution. Probably better than I can do. So yeah. So for solve 3, you have a solved centers and one solved edge, so pretty nice scramble. And you do all 3 tips in the front at the start. You don't do these too well. I think you like re-grip for all of them. What the best thing to do is to flick with your index finger and use your thumbs to solve the other 2, like this. That saves quite a bit of time because you're having to re-grip for all of them. Then you insert the blue edge. That's not bad. And then I don't think you paused. Maybe you did, but you definitely should have tracked where this other edge would have been and known exactly what to do at that point. For both of these edges, since they're, you don't have to track centers or anything, it wouldn't be that hard. So you do that. That's fine. That's pretty good. Then you rotate, I believe. Then do U prime, L prime, UL. Then you do a double AUF, U prime, U prime. I'd recommend just learning how to recognize it here and then do a U. Then you have a really good 2-flip execution there. Really, really solid solve that time. Alright, so for solve 4, you do you do blue. So you do the tips, the same way you did last time. Not very good, but it's alright. Definitely something you might want to improve on. Then you do R prime, U prime, L prime. You preserve this edge, which is nice. And then I believe, so you do L prime B to get blue on bottom. Definitely not worth it. You could have just done an L to get blue on bottom. That would have been quite enough. So after that, you do R, U prime, R prime to take this red out, rotate L prime, UL, put it back in. If you wanted to put that edge, I think that was really bad. If you wanted to put that edge here, there's several better things you could have done. You could have not rotated by doing R, U prime, R prime, then instead of rotating, do the same thing, just R prime, UR, and you could have planned all that out so it looks really smooth, just R, U prime, R2 prime, UR. Or you could have even just inserted this blue edge instead of the red, just L prime, U prime, L. Both of those would have saved you a rotation, but you don't. Do that, and then for this case, you do a U, L prime, UL. I would start to recognize there's like 3 or 4 cases when the edge is solved. You could have, and that you can skip with. You can skip with every case when one of these edges is solved. And for this one, all you had to do was L prime, U prime, L, and you would have skipped. So that would have been really nice. So you do L prime, UL, and then you do a double tip flick. You should have just done a U. That would have been way better. And then U prime, really smooth soon execution. Alright, so last solve here. So he has a 1-move yellow solve the centers. He does the first 2 tips really smoothly, and then does an R, then an R U prime R prime. That's pretty good. He probably should have. I don't know if he planned to insert this edge, but it could have been a smoother turning. Like he could have just done R2 U prime R prime. He paused a little bit. Then he rotates, which is necessary in this case, and does U prime L prime UL. Then he rotates and does R U prime R prime, which is not necessary. All he had to do was L U prime L prime here. And he actually could have canceled the move, U prime L prime U, L2 U prime L prime. But he instead rotates. I think he does R right around here. Let me check. Yeah, he does R U prime R prime, then fixes the tip, then does a double AUF, which is something you should definitely fix. Just do a U. And then solves it, and he kind of messes up a tip and then fixes it. And I think he fixes it pretty quickly. Kind of impressive how fast he fixed it. Alright, so now for the critique part of the video, where I tell you, what are your major focus areas you need to improve on. So the first one is your first 3 edges. I think this is a major one. You don't feel very comfortable with certain inserts. You only feel comfortable with a few. You always insert in the front. I would recommend that you learn to insert on the right and left as well. Remember, there are usually, there are always 3 ways you can insert. You can insert using like a sledge or a hedge, like so. You can insert using like from the opposite side, using R prime U prime R. And you can insert from the front, like L prime UL here. And you can also do that from many different angles. So like, I guess from this angle you can't, so sometimes you do have to rotate. But you can solve this back one from this angle and from this angle by R prime U prime R or L prime U prime L. And same here, R prime U R or L prime U L. I think that would really help your solves if you got more comfortable with that and used them when they were convenient. Because a lot of the times, if you had a piece right here, you'd do something like U prime, rotate, U prime, L prime, UL, or, you'd always rotate to the front, and you'd rarely do the optimal thing. So I want you to get comfortable with your inserts. The second thing, which will come with, I think that learning the different inserts and being comfortable with them for the first 3 edges will help with this. It's rotating way less. So yeah, it felt like you rotated quite a lot during your solve. My pyramid solves are rotationless. I mean, I obviously don't expect that of you, but it is very excessive. Not just for the first 3 edges, also for your centers. Sometimes you'd solve centers and you'd want to get the centers on the bottom, but you'd do multiple rotations and it would take a long time. You just want to be able to do one rotation. You only ever have to do one rotation to get the centers on the bottom. That happened multiple times, and I think that would help you out a lot. Next, I want you to, I think it's about time for you to start learning some of these L4E, really easy L4E cases. So I only mean the cases like, so say you're solving, you were solving yellow layer here, and you inserted red, and now you're inserting blue. And now you have this solved red and blue edge. That's really easy to recognize, and these cases are really easy. So you should always be able, if you learn these 5 or so cases, which all have link down in the description, or algs or something, to help you learn these. If you learn these cases, it will really help you take advantage of solves, because I felt like here, you kind of, it would have really helped you sometimes if you knew how to do it. Like sometimes, so see here, you solved yellow layer. You're 3 moves away from being solved, but sometimes you do U, L prime, UL, and that would probably add like 2 or 3 seconds to your solve. But if you had just done L prime, U prime, L, you would have been done just like that.